You're a nuisance, a disgrace to this house. I'm sending you to a place where no one will have to put up with your uselessness." The tear-filled eyes of the elderly woman in the wheelchair stared at her daughter-in-law with a mixture of plea and terror, as the metallic screech of her wheelchair's wheels grated on the cold marble, echoing the silent lament of her soul. With each cruel word, Layla pushed the chair harder, aware of the power she wielded over her defenseless mother-in-law, meticulously planning her abandonment. But amidst the luxury and tyranny, a forgotten passport would bring the sheik back home, and what he would discover would change everything, transforming the mansion of dreams into a stage for the most brutal of justices. Layla released the wheelchair with a harsh shove, sending matriarch Adelina crashing against the cold corridor wall. A faint moan escaped the old woman's parched lips, but Layla merely rolled her eyes, contempt evident in every feature of her flawless face. "Don't think your tears will move me, old woman. You've had your chance to be useful. Now you're a burden, and burdens are discarded." She walked away, her expensive heels echoing on the marble, leaving Adelina there huddled, head bowed, her frail body trembling with exhaustion and fear. The glass of water, which the sheik's mother had requested with a faint whisper, lay untouched on the nearby side table, just out of her reach. Layla knew Adelina couldn't reach it on her own, and that was precisely the intention. The thirst was another silent torture, a cruel reminder of her total dependence and of the daughter-in-law who reveled in her suffering. Adelina's throat burned. The sight of the glass, so close and yet unattainable, was a silent agony. As Layla headed to her private office, her mind was engrossed in the final details of her plan. The asylum, a distant and isolated place, promised to be the perfect solution for the problem, Adelina. She dialed a contact's number, a cold smile playing on her lips. "Yes, everything is ready for the transfer. Tomorrow at dawn. No delays, please." Her slender fingers drummed on the ebony desk, a contained but satisfied impatience. Freedom was a step away, and with it, the end of the bothersome shadow that her mother-in-law's presence cast. There was no room for the old and infirm in her life of luxury and glamour. Thousands of miles away, in a private jet crossing the night skies, Sheikh Khalil felt a pang of longing. The business trip to London had been longer than expected, but the prospect of reuniting with his beloved mother and his wife Layla filled his heart with warmth. He smiled, thinking of matriarch Adelina, her strength and wisdom, even with her advanced age and wheelchair. "Mother must miss my stories," he thought, a fond glint in his eyes. The passport, forgotten in the rush of departure, had become a blessing in disguise, allowing him to anticipate his return by a day. He wanted to make it a surprise. Upon landing, Khalil felt the familiar warm breeze of his homeland. The driver awaited him, and soon the armored car glided through the illuminated streets, heading towards the grand mansion. The house lights shone like stars in the desert, a beacon of home and comfort. But as he approached, a strange and subtle feeling enveloped him, an excessive quietness, perhaps. He dismissed the driver at the main entrance, deciding to enter alone, so the surprise would be complete. The entrance hall, usually vibrant with the presence of servants, was in an almost sepulchral silence. Khalil frowned, a slight worry beginning to nestle in his chest. Where could his mother be? And Layla? A dark premonition, like a cold shadow, began to spread over the joy of his return. He walked towards the living room, the sound of his own footsteps echoing too loudly in the vast space, unaware that each step brought him closer to a painful truth that would shake the foundations of his perfect world. Khalil moved through the mansion, the dark premonition growing. The heavy, unsettling silence made him call out, "Mother! Layla!" His voice echoed unanswered through the deserted rooms, tidy but lifeless. A shiver ran down his spine. Something was wrong. He climbed the stairs, his heart pounding, worry transforming into icy fear. Meanwhile, Adelina, still huddled in the cold corridor, felt her throat scratchy, each breath an effort. Her clouded eyes fixed on the glass of water, an unattainable oasis. The pain in her frail body was constant, but the thirst was a cruel torture. Silent tears streamed down her wrinkled face, mingling with the humiliation. "Khalil, my son," she whispered, her voice almost inaudible, a plea for help. She tried to move the chair, but her hands trembled. Her strength had abandoned her. Despair tightened its grip on her chest. In the office, Layla was finishing the call with the asylum, a triumphant smile adorning her lips. "Perfect. Tomorrow, at dawn then. No hitches." She hung up, feeling immense relief. The old woman would be a problem of the past. She stood up, smoothing her silk dress, and walked to the window. Her life was about to become freer, without the shadow of that useless woman. She picked up her cell phone to send a message and left it on the table, screen lit. Khalil reached the upper floor. A faint sound, almost a moan, caught his attention, coming from the furthest corridor. He quickened his pace, his heart pounding. As he turned the corner, the scene before his eyes froze his blood. There was Adelina, his beloved mother, huddled in her wheelchair, her face pale and marked by suffering, her eyes fixed on the glass of water, so close and yet unattainable. Her body trembled, and then he saw Layla. She was leaving the office, her cell phone still in her hand, a cold, satisfied smile on her face, walking with an arrogant posture. She stopped a few feet from her mother-in-law, her eyes meeting Adelina's desperate gaze. Instead of help, a cruel sneer formed on her lips. "Still thirsty, old woman? What a pity. Soon you'll be in a place where no one will care about your whims." Her words were poison, spoken with a coldness that sent a chill down Khalil's spine. He was hidden, too shocked to move, and in his hand, the cell phone he had used for his last call from London was still on, silently recording. The scene was a punch to Khalil's gut. The sight of his mother, fragile and humiliated, and the icy cruelty of his wife shattered his world. He watched Adelina extend a trembling hand towards the glass, a futile effort, and Layla merely observed with sadistic pleasure. The truth, brutal and undeniable, exploded in his mind. His mother was being tortured by his own wife. The audio, which his cell phone continued to record, captured every word, every sound of that desolate scene, sealing Layla's fate forever. Fury simmered within him, a volcano about to erupt. Khalil could no longer contain himself. Fury boiled within him, a volcano about to erupt. He emerged from his hiding place, his steps heavy and firm. Layla, caught by surprise, turned, her satisfied smile fading into shock as she saw her husband there, his eyes dark as a storm. Adelina, hearing the footsteps and seeing her son, raised her head with a thread of hope, a tear rolling down her cheek. "Khalil," she whispered, her voice almost inaudible, but full of despair and relief. "Layla, what is the meaning of this?" Khalil's voice was a contained roar, yet laden with pain. He advanced, stopping between his wife and mother. Layla tried to compose herself, a forced smile on her face. "Khalil, my love, you're back. What a wonderful surprise. I was just talking to your mother. She was being a bit stubborn about the water." Her voice was honeyed, but Khalil recoiled sharply. "Don't lie to me, Layla." His voice was cutting. "I heard, I saw, every word, every cruel gesture." He raised his cell phone, the screen lit, showing the recording. Layla's face paled, the blood draining from it, leaving her with a cadaverous pallor. Her wide eyes fixed on the device, and panic began to set in. She tried to argue, her voice failing. This is a mistake, Khalil. She's old, confused. I was just trying to..." Layla tried to argue. her voice failing. "Trying what, Layla?" Khalil interrupted her, his patience exhausted. "Trying to abandon her in a distant asylum, deprive her of water, of dignity. You turned her into a prisoner in her own home." He knelt beside Adelina, picking up the glass of water and offering it to his mother. Adelina drank eagerly, her eyes fixed on her son, an overwhelming gratitude. Khalil felt her desperate thirst. "You have no idea what I've endured, Khalil. She's a burden, a nuisance," Layla screamed, her mask of innocence shattered, revealing fury and resentment. "I deserve more than caring for a useless old woman." Her words, devoid of any disguise, were shocking, and the audio on Khalil's phone captured every single one, sealing her fate. He stood up, his expression stern, his decision made. "Enough, Layla, I've heard enough, and the world will hear it too," Khalil said, his voice low but laden with unshakable authority. "You are no longer my wife, no longer part of this family. Your fortune, your status, everything you value, will be taken from you. You will be expelled from this house, from this life." He made a discreet gesture for the security guards, who had already arrived in the corridor, to approach. Layla recoiled, her eyes filled with hatred and disbelief. "No, you can't do this. I am your wife. I have rights," Khalil declared, his voice firm. "Your rights ended the moment you decided to torture my mother. In an hour, you will have nothing but the clothes on your back. This mansion, which you transformed into a stage of cruelty, will once again be a sanctuary for my mother. And you, Layla, will be nothing but a bitter memory, an example that not all the gold in the world can buy impunity for wickedness." The security guards approached Layla, who tried to resist but was firmly restrained. Her screams of rage and despair echoed through the corridors. But Khalil did not waver. He turned to Adelina, his face softening, and took his mother's wrinkled hand. Justice finally had arrived, and with it, the promise of peace for the matriarch. Layla's screams echoed through the opulent corridors, mingling with her resistance as the guards escorted her out. She struggled, her eyes bloodshot with fury, casting a final hateful glance at Khalil and Adelina. "You'll regret this, Khalil. I swear, you don't know what you've lost." Her words, venomous and full of rancor, were the last before the mansion's main door closed with a dull, final thud, sealing the end of her presence there. A heavy, yet liberating silence descended upon the house, replacing the atmosphere of silent terror that Layla had imposed. Khalil ignored the threats. His world had been turned upside down, but his mother was the priority. He knelt beside the wheelchair, his heart heavy with remorse and love. "Mother, forgive me, for not seeing, for not being here." He took Adelina's wrinkled hands, which still trembled slightly. Her eyes, once clouded with despair, now shone with relief and a profound sadness that Khalil recognized as the mark of prolonged suffering. She squeezed her son's hand, unable to speak, but her expression said everything. That touch was a balm for Adelina's wounded soul, a promise that the nightmare had ended. With tender care, Khalil helped her settle back into the chair. He discreetly called the housekeeper, Mrs. Fatima, a trusted woman for decades who had also suffered in silence under Layla. "Mrs. Fatima, please prepare a warm bath for my mother with relaxing oils, and afterwards a light and nutritious meal. I want her to have everything she needs and to be treated with the affection and respect she has always deserved." The housekeeper, her eyes brimming with tears, nodded, a gentle smile appearing. The change in the house's atmosphere was palpable. The staff, observing from a distance, seemed to breathe lighter air. Khalil gently pushed Adelina's wheelchair, taking her to her room, a spacious and luxurious area that, he realized with a pang in his chest, Layla had transformed into a prison. The curtains were drawn, natural light blocked, and a musty smell hung in the air. He threw open the curtains, allowing the morning sun to flood the room, revealing dust and neglect. "We'll change everything here, Mother. Everything will be as it was before, or better. This house will be your sanctuary once again," he promised, his voice choked with emotion. While Mrs. Fatima and other assistants prepared the bath and the room, Khalil sat beside Adelina, holding her hand. He felt his mother's fragility, but also the silent strength that had kept her alive through that ordeal. The shame for his blindness was immense, but the determination to right the wrong was even greater. He knew Adelina's recovery would be a long journey, not just physical but emotional. The invisible wounds were the deepest, but with him by her side, with the love and dedication of the family, she would rise again. The mansion, once a stage of silent terror, began to breathe again, purified by truth and justice. Sheikh Khalil, who had traveled the world in search of empires, now dedicated himself to rebuilding the most precious of all, the heart of his home and his mother's dignity. Khalil observed his mother's room with a determined gaze. Dust, heavy curtains, the smell of abandonment, everything bore witness to Layla's cruelty. He knelt beside Adelina, who still held his hand, her eyes fixed on him, fearing to disappear. "Mother, we will transform this place. It will be a home of light and love." His voice was soft but laden with promise. Mrs. Fatima returned with assistance, their faces showing relief and readiness. "Sheikh Khalil, the bath is prepared, and the ladies are ready to clean the room." Khalil nodded, grateful for the housekeeper's efficiency. He turned to Adelina. "Come, Mother. A warm bath will do you good. Afterwards, a delicious meal and a renovated room." He helped her rise from the chair with delicacy, feeling the fragile weight of her body. Each of her movements was slow, hesitant, as if she still expected a reprimand. As Adelina was taken to the bathroom, Khalil began to give instructions. "Open the curtains, letting the fresh air in. Let every corner be cleaned. Bring fresh, vibrant flowers. And choose the softest sheets, the warmest blankets." He wanted to erase every trace of neglect, replace darkness with light, the musty smell with the scent of flowers. The mansion needed to be purified. Adelina, immersed in the warm water with scented oils, felt her muscles relax. The gentle hands of the assistants washed her with a forgotten care. The touch, once synonymous with pain, now brought comfort. Silent tears streamed down her face, not from sadness, but from relief and gratitude. She thought of Khalil, her son, who had rescued her like an angel. Layla's image still haunted her, but Khalil's presence was a shield. In the room, Khalil supervised every detail. He himself helped move furniture, open the windows. The morning sun flooded the room, revealing the beauty of the Persian carpets and wood carvings, previously hidden under dirt. He found a dusty photo album and, upon opening it, saw images of a young Adelina, smiling, beside his father, and photos of himself as a child. A lump formed in his throat. How long had his mother spent alone, reliving these memories in silence and pain? When Adelina was brought back to the room, now transformed, her tear-filled eyes widened. The open curtains revealed the lush gardens, the light and fragrant air, and the bed was impeccably made with silk sheets. Khalil smiled at her, a warm smile, full of love. "Welcome back, Mother. This is your sanctuary." He helped her settle into bed, arranging soft pillows. Mrs. Fatima brought a tray with light soup and herbal tea. Adelina ate slowly, feeling the food restore her strength. Khalil sat beside her, holding her hand, telling stories of his travels, but with a gentle and attentive tone, observing every reaction. He knew that healing would be a process, but with each faint smile from Adelina, each squeeze of her hand, he felt he was on the right path. The mansion, once a stage of terror, was finally becoming a home of hope and renewal, a testament to the power of family love. Adelina finished the soup, feeling a comforting warmth spread through her body. The herbal tea, warm and aromatic, soothed her throat. She looked at Khalil, her eyes still laden with an ancient melancholy, but with a glimmer of gratitude that did not escape her son's notice. He continued to speak, describing the vibrant markets of Marrakesh, the scents of spices and the colors of fabrics, trying to fill the silence with the beauty of the world she could no longer visit. But as he spoke of banquets and exotic delicacies, a chill ran down Adelina's spine. Her hand squeezed Khalil's with unexpected strength for her fragility. The smile on her face vanished, replaced by an expression of anguish. Khalil stopped speaking, sensing the sudden change. "Mother, what is it?" he asked, his voice soft, leaning closer to her. Adelina tried to speak, but the words seemed caught in her throat. She swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on a distant point as if reliving a nightmare. "Scraps," she whispered, her voice hoarse, almost inaudible. On the floor, darkness. A tear rolled down her wrinkle, and she closed her eyes tightly, as if wanting to erase the image. Khalil felt a punch to his gut. Scraps. On the floor, darkness. Her words painted a picture of cruelty that went beyond what he had witnessed. Not just deprivation, but the calculated humiliation of being forced to eat like an animal in the darkness, so no one would see, so she would feel even more insignificant. The fury he thought he had appeased began to boil again, more intense and painful, mixed with overwhelming guilt. He had thought that Layla's expulsion and the restoration of the room were enough, but his mother's wounds were deeper, dirtier. Layla had not merely mistreated her, she had dehumanized her. Khalil squeezed Adelina's hand, feeling her pain as if it were his own. "Mother, I'm so sorry. I swear no one will ever do this to you again. Never again." His voice was choked, his eyes tear-filled. Adelina opened her eyes and looked at him, a hint of fear still present, but also a renewed trust. She didn't need more words. Khalil's gaze, full of love and determination, was his promise. He stood up, the resolve on his face now firmer than ever. Adelina's healing would not just be physical, it would be the reconstruction of her soul, of her dignity, and he would be there for every step. He kissed his mother's forehead, a gesture of love and protection. "Let's start anew, Mother, one day at a time." The journey would be long, but the truth had been revealed, and with it, the strength to overcome. Khalil remained kneeling beside the bed, holding Adelina's hand, feeling the fragility of her wrinkled fingers. The kiss on her forehead had been a silent promise, a vow that darkness would never reach her again. He observed his mother's face, her skin thin and marked, her eyes that had seen so much suffering, but which now, for an instant, seemed less clouded. "Rest, Mother," he whispered, his voice choked. "I'll stay here. I won't leave your side." Adelina closed her eyes, a soft sigh escaping her lips. Khalil's presence was a shield, a balm for her soul. She didn't fall asleep immediately. Instead, she felt the warmth of her son's hand, the security he radiated, and allowed herself for the first time in a long while to relax. The images of the scraps on the floor, of the cold solitude, still tried to invade her mind, but Khalil's voice, soft and constant, pushed them away. Khalil remained there for hours, observing his mother's peaceful breathing. Guilt still gnawed at him, a slow poison, but the determination to mend every hurt surpassed the bitterness. He only rose to adjust the pillows, to ensure the sunlight didn't bother her, to feel the room's temperature. Mrs. Fatima, with her usual discretion, brought him chamomile tea, leaving it on the bedside table with a look of understanding. The house, once a stage of cruelty, was now a haven of care. Over the following days, the mansion witnessed a profound transformation. Khalil spared no effort. He spent most of his time with Adelina, reading to her, telling stories of his childhood, or simply sitting in silence, his presence an anchor. He took her for strolls through the lush gardens, pushing her wheelchair with a tenderness that moved the staff. Adelina at first remained withdrawn, her shoulders hunched, her gaze distant. But gradually, the light began to return to her eyes. One day, as Khalil read an old poetry book that Adelina loved, she reached out and touched the page, a hesitant gesture. This is my favorite," she murmured, her voice still weak, but with a clarity that made Khalil's heart leap. He smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his face. "Yes, Mother, it's your favorite." He kissed her hand, his eyes brimming with emotion. It was a small step, but a gigantic one on the healing journey. Mrs. Fatima and the house staff dedicated themselves with renewed affection. Meals were prepared with care, served on fine china, and Adelina was encouraged to eat, always with Khalil present. The physiotherapist came daily, helping her with gentle exercises, and Khalil participated, holding his mother's hand, encouraging her with words of love. With each session, Adelina seemed to gain a little more strength, a little more confidence in her own body. Nights were the most difficult for Adelina. Nightmares still haunted her, and she would wake with a start, her heart racing. But Khalil was always there. He would sit beside her, turn on a soft light, and talk to her until calm returned. "It's all right, Mother. You are safe. I am here." His voice was a safe harbor, dispelling the shadows of memory. The mansion, once silent and cold, now echoed with soft laughter and the melody of a life reborn. Adelina, though still fragile, began to smile more, to interact with the staff, to enjoy the beauty around her. The dignity that Layla had tried to crush was flourishing again, watered by her son's unconditional love. Khalil knew the path was long, but each day, the bond between them strengthened, proving that love and dedication could heal the deepest wounds and restore the soul. The sun, now a constant presence in Adelina's room, bathed the environment in a golden, welcoming light. Days turned into weeks, and the mansion, once a stage of shadows, pulsed with new energy. Khalil remained firm in his purpose, his dedication unwavering. He not only supervised his mother's care, but actively participated in every moment, transforming daily tasks into acts of love. The physiotherapist, Mrs. Clara, a woman with a gentle smile and firm hands, noticed Adelina's gradual improvement. "Your muscles are stronger, Sheikh Khalil," she commented one day, as Adelina tried to lift an arm with more ease. "And most importantly, your will to try is back." Adelina, who once flinched at touch, now responded to the exercises with visible effort, her eyes seeking Khalil's for approval. One day, as Khalil read to her in the garden, under the fragrant shade of a jasmine, Adelina pointed to a blooming rose bush. That rose was your father's favorite," she whispered, her voice clearer than in previous weeks. Khalil felt a shiver. It was the first time she had spoken about his father, about the past, without the shadow of fear. "Yes, Mother. I remember well. He spent hours caring for them." Adelina smiled faintly, a sweet memory breaking through the barrier of pain. I loved caring for them. Before." Her voice trailed off, but Khalil's gaze encouraged her. "Before Layla, Mother?" he asked softly. Adelina nodded, a solitary tear rolling down her cheek. "She said I was useless, that my hands were good for nothing but causing trouble." Khalil kissed her hand. "Your hands are precious, Mother. They created a home, they created me, and they can still bring beauty to the world." The next day, Khalil surprised Adelina with a small gardening table adapted for her wheelchair, and some rose seedlings and light tools. Adelina's eyes widened. She touched the petals of a red rose with an almost childlike reverence. I can." Khalil smiled, his heart overflowing. "Of course, Mother, let's plant these beauties together." With the help of Mrs. Fatima and Khalil, Adelina began to replant the seedlings. Her movements were slow and hesitant at first, but with each petal touched, each clod of earth handled, a spark of life seemed to rekindle within her. Her hands, once trembling with weakness, now moved with a delicate purpose. The smell of the earth, the touch of the leaves, the sight of vibrant colors brought a deep peace to her spirit. It was more than gardening. It was an act of resistance, a reclaiming of her own essence. Khalil watched, moved as his mother's smile became more frequent and genuine. The mansion, which Layla had tried to suffocate with darkness, flourished again, not only in the gardens, but in the heart of its matriarch. The connection between mother and son deepened with each shared moment, proving that true wealth lay in the bonds that love cultivated. Adelina, feeling the earth in her hands, felt herself reborn, one step at a time, towards the fullness of her dignity and peace. The days unfolded into a tapestry of small triumphs. Each seedling planted, each dry leaf removed, was an act of affirmation against the darkness that had surrounded her. Her hands, once weak and hesitant, now moved with renewed delicacy, as if the earth itself transmitted strength and purpose to her. Sheikh Khalil observed his mother's every movement with a mixture of joy and persistent pain. The sight of Adelina, with a gentle smile on her lips as she tended to the roses, was a balm for his soul, but also a constant reminder of lost time, of the suffering he had not prevented. He would sit beside her in the garden, reading, or simply in silence, his presence an anchor of security. One afternoon, as Adelina was transplanting a small orchid, a flower that required care and patience, a ceramic pot accidentally fell from her adapted table, shattering on the floor. The sharp sound made Adelina flinch immediately, her eyes wide with terror, her hands covering her face as if expecting a blow. The memory of Layla's harsh and cruel voice echoed in her mind. "Useless. You're only good for breaking things and causing trouble." Adelina's body trembled, and tears welled up, silent and bitter. Khalil, who was reading a book nearby, dropped it instantly. He knelt beside the wheelchair, taking his mother's trembling hands. "Mother, it's all right. It was an accident. Don't worry." He spoke with a calm he didn't feel, his heart heavy as he saw the terror in her eyes. Mrs. Fatima, who was nearby, quickly approached to clean up the shards with a look of deep compassion. Adelina, still trembling, opened her eyes and looked at him, shame and fear battling in her gaze. I'm so clumsy," she whispered, her voice choked. Khalil shook his head, kissing her hands. "No, Mother, you are strong. You are resilient. Accidents happen. There's nothing to fear." He embraced her tenderly, feeling her fragile body slowly calm in his arms. In that embrace, Adelina felt the warmth of unconditional love, the truth that she was not alone. Layla's words, which had once paralyzed her, began to lose their power. The sound of the breaking pot was no longer a harbinger of pain, but just an accident. Khalil gently pulled her away, wiping her tears with his thumb. "Come, Mother. How about we plant a new orchid, an even more beautiful one?" With a sigh, Adelina nodded, a small smile appearing on her lips. Khalil called one of the gardeners to bring a new pot and an even more exuberant orchid. Together, mother and son, with Mrs. Fatima's help, planted the flower, each movement an act of healing. Adelina, with the earth in her hands again, felt life pulse, renewed. That small incident, which could have been a setback, became a reminder of her strength and the love that surrounded her. The mansion, with its vibrant gardens and Adelina's soft laughter, was now a testament to the human capacity to overcome pain and flourish again. Khalil, beside his mother, understood that true justice was not merely the punishment of wickedness, but the full restoration of dignity and joy to those who had been hurt. That incident with the pot, which could have been a painful setback, solidified Adelina's trust in her son's unconditional love. In the days that followed, the mansion continued to be a haven of peace and affection. Adelina's soft laughter, once so rare, began to echo through the corridors and gardens, a melody that filled Khalil's heart with deep joy. Adelina's daily routine blossomed with small achievements. She now participated more actively in physiotherapy sessions. Her movements, though still limited, gained more fluidity and intention. Mrs. Clara praised her dedication, and Khalil was always present, holding her hand, his eyes conveying silent encouragement. Meals, once a torment, became moments of pleasure. Adelina not only ate with appetite, but also expressed her preferences, asking for dishes she hadn't tasted in a long time, memories of a happy life before Layla's shadow. One morning, as Khalil helped her choose a scarf for her morning stroll in the garden, Adelina looked at the mirror with an intensity that surprised her son. Her wrinkled fingers touched her own face, tracing the lines of weariness, but her eyes, once dull, now reflected a spark of curiosity. I'd like to see myself again," she murmured, her voice almost a whisper, but laden with a deep desire. "How I was before." Khalil felt a lump in his throat. He knew Layla had forbidden mirrors in his mother's room, claiming that old women don't need vanity. It was another cruel way to erase Adelina's identity. He knelt, holding his mother's hands. "Mother, you are beautiful, always have been and always will be. But if you want to see yourself, let's do it." He called Mrs. Fatima, who promptly brought a full-length mirror, carefully covered. With a gentle gesture, Khalil removed the fabric, revealing Adelina's image. She saw herself sitting in her wheelchair, her white hair neatly combed, the colorful scarf framing her face. For an instant, Adelina hesitated, the painful memories of her image reflected in Layla's eyes, full of contempt, trying to resurface. But then she saw Khalil's reflection beside her, his gaze full of love and admiration. A slow, trembling smile appeared on her lips. It wasn't the smile of a young woman, but that of a matriarch who recognized the strength and dignity that still resided within her. She touched her own reflection, a gesture of reconciliation. I am still here," she said, her voice firmer. "I am still me." Khalil felt tears well up. That moment was more than seeing a reflection. It was Adelina rediscovering herself, accepting herself, forgiving herself for having allowed the darkness to consume her. He embraced her again, a tight hug full of gratitude. "Yes, Mother, you are here, and you will never be alone again." From that day on, the mirror remained in Adelina's room. She spent small moments in front of it, not with vanity, but with a contemplative quietness, as if she were stitching back the fragments of her identity. She asked for her hair to be styled, chose her clothes with more care, small acts of self-affirmation that showed the rebirth of her spirit. The mansion, with every corner purified, now reflected the light emanating from Adelina's heart, a living testament that love and attention could indeed restore the most deeply wounded soul and dignity. The healing journey was continuous, but every step Adelina took was a victory, a reminder that inner beauty could never truly be extinguished. The light emanating from Adelina's heart now warmed every corner of the mansion, a living testament to the power of love and attention to heal the most deeply wounded soul and dignity. Her healing journey was continuous, and every step was a victory, a reminder that inner beauty could never truly be extinguished. As weeks passed, Adelina not only regained physical strength, but also the vivacity of her spirit. She began to express desires, to ask questions about the outside world that Layla had tried to hide from her. "Khalil, how are the flowers in the winter garden?" she asked one day as he helped her choose a book. "Are the orchids we planted blooming?" Her eyes shone with renewed curiosity. Khalil's heart swelled with joy. "They're beautiful, Mother, blooming in vibrant colors. Would you like to see them?" Adelina nodded with a smile, and he took her to the winter garden, a sanctuary of glass and light that Layla had kept closed to her. There, amidst the lush greenery and exotic flowers, Adelina touched the petals, inhaled the soft fragrance, and a deep peace settled on her face. It was a small but significant step to reconnect with the world that had been stolen from her. Inspired by this new openness, Khalil had an idea. It was the time of year when the family traditionally celebrated the Festival of Lights, an occasion for unity and gratitude. Layla had always transformed the event into a display of her own ostentation, excluding Adelina. But this year would be different. Khalil decided that the festival would be a celebration of his mother's life and resilience. He planned an intimate evening, inviting only the closest family members and the most loyal staff, those who had witnessed Adelina's pain and now shared her joy. When Khalil told Adelina about his plans, she hesitated. A shadow of apprehension crossed her face. "But Khalil, I don't know if I can. People, they will look at me." The memory of Layla's contempt, of the looks of pity or indifference that made her shrink, still haunted her. Khalil knelt beside her wheelchair, holding her hands. "Mother, they will look at you with love and admiration, with the respect you have always deserved. You don't need to be afraid. I will be by your side every moment." Mrs. Fatima, with her usual affection, helped Adelina choose a sky-blue silk dress embroidered with silver threads, which enhanced her dignified bearing. Her white hair was carefully styled and adorned with a delicate jasmine flower. Upon seeing herself in the mirror, Adelina saw not a fragile and broken woman, but a matriarch whose eyes, though marked by life, shone with a renewed light. A genuine and serene smile spread across her lips. She was ready. On the night of the festival, the mansion's grand hall was transformed. Colorful lanterns hung from the ceiling, creating a magical and welcoming atmosphere. The tables were laden with delicacies, and soft music filled the air. The guests, few but significant, awaited with anticipation. When Khalil pushed Adelina's wheelchair to the entrance of the hall, a reverent silence fell over the room. Adelina, upright and serene, with a silk scarf covering her shoulders, seemed to float. Her eyes swept across the hall, meeting gazes full of affection and respect. There was no pity, no contempt, only love. Khalil knelt beside her, taking her hand. "Mother, you are home, and you are the light of this home." Adelina squeezed his hand, tears welling up, but they were tears of gratitude and relief. She raised her chin, a gesture of strength not seen in years. That moment, under the soft light of the lanterns, with the love of her son and her family enveloping her, was the climax of her journey. She was no longer the silent victim. She was the queen of her home, her dignity fully restored, her spirit finally free. The mansion, once a stage of shadows, now celebrated the resurrection of its matriarch, proving that love, justice, and human connection would always prevail over cruelty. That moment of triumph at the Festival of Lights reverberated throughout the mansion, marking the beginning of a new era. Adelina, seated in her wheelchair, enveloped by the warmth of loving gazes, felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in a long time. The tears, once of pain, now streamed down her face like rivers of gratitude. Khalil, kneeling beside her, held her hand firmly, his tear-filled eyes reflecting the same emotion. He helped her greet the few guests, each handshake, each smile, a seal of acceptance and affection. Mrs. Fatima, with a wide smile, brought a small plate with Adelina's favorite delicacies, and she ate with an appetite that surprised everyone, a simple gesture that celebrated her full recovery. The days following the festival were filled with renewed energy. Adelina not only felt physically stronger, but her mind, once clouded by fear, now radiated clarity. She began to actively participate in the management of the house, something previously forbidden by Layla. From her wheelchair in the office Khalil had adapted for her, Adelina reviewed menus, offered suggestions for the lush gardens, and even helped plan small family events. Her advice was wise and thoughtful, and the staff, who respected her deeply, followed her guidance with dedication. Khalil observed each of these acts with immense pride, feeling the balance of the house restored, and with it, peace in his soul. The guilt that had tormented him diminished with each genuine smile from his mother, with each demonstration of her strength. Physiotherapy became a moment of triumph and joy. Adelina, with Mrs. Clara's help and Khalil's constant encouragement, began to take small steps with the aid of a walker. It was a slow and painful process, but the determination in her eyes was unshakable. "I will walk again, my son," she promised Khalil one day, as she leaned on him, her face sweaty with effort. "I will walk to see my roses up close." Khalil kissed her forehead, feeling the strength in her words. "I know you will, mother, and I will be here every step of the way." The mansion, which had been a labyrinth of solitude, was now a vibrant home, full of life and laughter. Khalil's grandchildren, previously kept away by Layla, came to visit her regularly. They would sit around her chair, listening to her stories, showing her their drawings, and the joy in Adelina's eyes was contagious. She became the matriarch she always should have been, a pillar of her family radiating love and wisdom. Justice for Khalil was not merely Layla's expulsion, but the reconstruction of everything she had tried to destroy. It was the restoration of his mother's dignity, the healing of her spirit, and the rediscovery of the joy of living. Pain had transformed into a lesson of resilience, and love into a beacon of hope. Adelina one day asked to be taken to the rose garden. With Khalil's help and her walker, she slowly walked to her late husband's favorite rose bush, the one Layla had said she was useless for caring for. With trembling yet firm hands, she touched one of the velvety petals. A serene smile spread across her face. "They are beautiful, my son," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion, "as beautiful as I remember." Khalil embraced her tenderly, feeling the scent of the roses and the warmth of his mother's love. That moment under the golden sun proved that life always finds a way to flourish, even after the cruelest storms. The mansion, with its restored matriarch, was now a sanctuary of lasting love and peace. The scent of the roses, mingled with the warmth of Khalil's embrace, filled Adelina with a sense of completeness she thought she had lost forever. The velvety petals beneath her fingers were a tangible reminder of the beauty that still existed in the world, and of the inner strength she had rediscovered within herself. That day, and in the many that followed, her husband's favorite rose bush was not just a memory of the past, but a vibrant symbol of her own rebirth and resilience. The small steps in the rose garden transformed into a constant journey of overcoming and hope. With Mrs. Clara's tireless dedication and Khalil's unwavering support, Adelina continued to advance in her physiotherapy day after day. The walker, once an intimidating challenge, became a faithful companion in her daily explorations of the mansion. She not only walked to the garden, but also visited the kitchen to supervise meals and the office to review house plans, always with a smile and a kind word for everyone. The mansion, which had once been a stage of silent cruelty, now resonated with Adelina's joy and vibrant presence. Her grandchildren, who once viewed her with apprehension due to Layla's coldness, now ran to embrace her, sharing their stories and contagious laughter. Adelina read to them, told ancient tales, and taught them to care for the small seedlings they planted together in the adapted garden. The living room, once a place of reclusion, transformed into a center of family life, with games, conversations, and the aroma of special teas that Adelina lovingly prepared. Khalil observed all this with a light heart and immense gratitude. The guilt that had gnawed at him for so long finally dissipated, replaced by a deep peace and a sense of duty fulfilled. He saw in his mother not just the restored matriarch, but a woman who had faced darkness and emerged with an even brighter and more inspiring light. His business trips continued, but now he left and returned with the certainty that his mother was safe, loved, and flourishing in her home. Daily video calls with Adelina, full of laughter and details about the day, were the highlight of his day. Mrs. Fatima and Mrs. Clara, silent witnesses to the entire ordeal, felt deep satisfaction seeing Adelina's transformation, a true victory of the human spirit. The mansion, with its lush gardens and corridors full of life, was proof that kindness and compassion would always prevail over wickedness. Adelina's story became an inspiring whisper among the staff, a reminder that human dignity, once wounded, can be fully restored through love and justice. One day, as the golden afternoon sun bathed the garden, Adelina sat on her favorite bench, no longer in her wheelchair, but on a garden bench with her walker beside her. She held a poetry book, her glasses perched on the tip of her nose. Khalil approached, sitting beside her. She raised her eyes, a serene glow in her gaze. "You know, my son," she said, her voice soft and full of wisdom, "life is like this garden. There are winter seasons, where everything seems dead and hopeless, but if we care for it with love and patience, spring always returns, bringing new flowers and even greater beauty." Khalil took her wrinkled hand, kissing it with reverence. "You are the spring of this home, Mother, and the most valuable lesson I have ever learned." Adelina smiled, squeezing his hand. The mansion, once an empire of opulence and dark secrets, was now a true sanctuary of love, resilience, and deep human connection. The family, united and strengthened, had found its true treasure, the joy of living and the certainty that cruelty, no matter how hard it tries, can never extinguish the light of the soul. Adelina's legacy would not be one of suffering, but of triumph, an eternal beacon of hope and unconditional love. The days that followed that golden afternoon in the garden further solidified the peace that had settled in the mansion. Adelina, with her renewed wisdom, became the family's moral compass, a point of reference for all who sought advice or comfort. Her eyes, once full of apprehension, now radiated a profound serenity, a reflection of a soul that had been healed and strengthened. Khalil, in turn, found a new purpose in his life. His business trips continued, but the perspective with which he approached them had changed drastically. He no longer sought merely the growth of his empire, but the opportunity to use his influence for good, investing in social projects that supported the elderly and vulnerable individuals. The pain his mother had endured transformed him into a passionate advocate for human dignity, and he strove to ensure that no other person would suffer in silence as Adelina had. The mansion, once a stage of contrasts between luxury and misery, was now a living example of how true value resides in love and compassion. The staff, who had witnessed the transformation, worked with even greater dedication and affection, feeling part of something larger than a mere job. Mrs. Fatima and Mrs. Clara, in particular, saw in Adelina not just the matriarch, but a dear friend whose journey inspired everyone. They shared laughter and confidences, and Adelina's presence in the kitchen or garden was always a source of joy. Khalil's grandchildren grew up under their grandmother's loving influence. They spent hours listening to her stories, learning about the resilience of the garden flowers and the importance of caring for one another. Adelina taught them to paint, to read poetry, and above all, to value kindness and empathy. The living room, once silent, echoed with the sound of their play and Adelina's soft laughter, a sound Khalil held in his heart as the most precious of melodies. Adelina's health continued to improve. With constant physiotherapy and the joy that filled her days, she not only walked with her walker, but on good days took a few steps alone, holding onto Khalil's arm, her eyes shining with pride. Each small advance was celebrated by the entire family, a testament to the strength of her spirit and the body's capacity to recover when the soul is at peace. On a sunny afternoon, Khalil found Adelina sitting on the veranda, watching the sunset paint the sky with shades of orange and purple. She held a cup of tea, a serene smile on her lips. He sat beside her, taking her hand. "Mother," he said, his voice choked with emotion, "you are living proof that love always wins. That light, no matter how much they try to extinguish it, always finds a way to shine again." Adelina turned to him, her eyes filled with unconditional love. "My son," she whispered, "true wealth is not in what we possess, but in the love we give and receive. You gave me my life back, and for that, I will be eternally grateful." She squeezed his hand, and together, mother and son, they watched the sun set, knowing that each new dawn would bring with it the promise of a future filled with peace, dignity, and the unshakable connection of a family that had found its true home in each other's hearts. The mansion, with its restored matriarch, was now a beacon of hope, a reminder that kindness, justice, and love are the most solid pillars of any empire.